From the Ticats Audio Network, this is a Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today.
You can call it a winning streak. Back-to-back wins for the Tiger Cats, including an impressive 44-28 win in Edmonton. And what a group. What a group we have on Ticats this week. Ticats Audio Network boasts the best analysts in the CFL, and we've got three of them right here. Matt Bucknor, Mike Daly, Luke Tasker. I'm RJ Broadhead, voice of the Ticats. Boy, it's been fun to call the last couple of games, a couple of wins, and Tiger Cats really needed it to keep pace in the East Division. But, okay, we're going to get more in-depth with special teams, the block punt, defense, the interception. 44 points was the most this season. All three phases looked pretty good in that game, Luke. Is that an indication of what the Tiger Cats can do when all three phases are clicking?
It certainly is, but all three phases looked good at different times, or at certain times, I should say, in the game. Because, RJ, I don't know, at the end of the first quarter, I wasn't sitting there thinking that this was going to end in 44 points for the Ticats. It didn't get off. In fact, it was actually the Elks who got off to a faster start offensively. Kind of looked like maybe we were going to see some of the passing defense issues that the Ticats have had in that first part of the season there. And sure enough, they sort of shored up there in the second and third quarter specifically. One of the best third quarters I can remember seeing from a Ticat team, being a part of from being on the sidelines or on the field or in the booth with you, RJ. They dominated the clock. They drove the field 2.5 times, and then that half that led into the fourth quarter was another touchdown. I mean, it was an unbelievable beginning of the second half. Special teams, again, starting to see them really come around this season. That you're just really pleased with the production there you have there, and once you start making fans almost expect a blocked punt, you know you're doing something right on special teams.
Matt, you were doing the pre-halftime post, so you were right there with us. It was a pretty exciting game, and the score was a little bit flattering for the Elks as it turned out. They had that late push with Trey Ford, wrote a little bit of momentum there, but it was not a nail-biter, which was kind of nice for Tiger Cats and their fans.
Yeah, the Cats were able to have a pretty sizable lead. For a good chunk of that second half, going into the half, they're up 13, and you see them making like a really huge push to get into that third quarter, fourth quarter as well. And then again, one of the things that we talked about too is we want to see the Cats close out, right? So they had that sizable lead. They were up 30 points at one point, and Trey Ford had a chance. He got loose, and he brought his element and made. He was kind of giving the D-line fits there. You guys could see that where they're running around, they're scrambling, and he's scrambling and making plays with his feet, which is something that is expected from him. But again, it's just tough to stop. And right now the Cats, they'll take the win. They'll take the win.
Mike, you're back on the broadcast this week. Good to have you back as well. This 2-game winning streak, what stood out to you?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's just that the defense has managed to be able to get some turnovers, and we talk about the blocked punts. Those are massive, right? We had talked about this before. I've said this multiple times. If you block a punt in a game, it's upwards of 80%, more than 80% that you're going to win that game. So it's really big that they're able to do that. But it's one of these things where we talked about it with the Bo Levi Mitchell situation where he is playing so well, but you can't expect it every single game. Right, and right now those blocked punts, Luke, yes, absolutely expect them every game, but those are hard to execute. Those are hard to get done. So the special teams, it's awesome under Dennis McKnight. It's obviously revamped a lot of these players and maybe a little bit of player personnel where they should go, who should fit in where, and a little bit of changing has helped as well. I'm really looking forward, though, especially in this next game, and to see if this can be the next step for the special teams where it can be a little bit more return focus where they can get, Smoke Harris off for a couple big returns or whoever might be back there. But it is really good to see. It's a confidence booster internally for the Ticats. And I know there's going to be a lot to watch, like Bucknor said, in terms of the Trey Ford situation and those points at the end. There'll be a lot of film and it won't feel as sweet. But internally, it's going to be like, hey, we're back now, get a winning streak under our belt, and look at us go. So it's exciting to see, but there's still, a little bit of room for improvement, I would say, for this Ticats team.
And we should say the next game is on Friday, so it's a short week for the Tiger Cats. It's against Montreal, a home-and-home against Montreal. That'll be a 7:30 kickoff at Tim Hortons Field on Friday. We'll get more into that matchup. You brought up the special teams in the return game, Mike. What is the return game for the Tiger Cats right now? I'm not even sure. Lawrence Woods, he's hurt, but he wasn't explosive, and he was in when the special teams was kind of struggling and learning. And Smoke Harris hardly had any touches in the last game. He's had some bursts, but I really don't know if the Tiger Cats have a good return game right now. Do you?
Well, that's a good question. The return game right now is blocking punts. That's what the return game is. And that's the best one that you can have, right? But it's one of these things where it just has to be a focus, and there's going to be opportunities for those returners to hit some holes. You're right, RJ. I don't know who it is yet. You look around the league, and it seems like most teams have their guy picked out, and this is their main guy, and we're going to focus on getting this some returns. And right now, the Ticats is just a lot left to be wished for. So, hey, opportunities there. So whoever wants to go ahead and take it can. But don't forget, it's 11 people. And yeah, Luke, I know you want to get in on this.
I think I still am really hopeful for Smoke Harris. I thought we saw some really encouraging things at Tim Hortons Field for their first win against the Argonauts. And you're going to have teams that sort of, after 4 quarters, sort of, you could say, on net for the whole game of all the reps you had, did the punt team win that, or did your return team win? And then when that's flipped, did your punt team win, or did their punt team win? And you can kind of break down the game that way. And you're not going to win every game, with each of those units. And so, yeah, maybe, the special teams return game, certainly the punt return game did not make a huge difference in that game. But you're going to have it. I'm excited to see more of Smoke Harris, because he did a few things, moved some ways in that return game against Toronto, and made his way through some tackles, like you see a lot of the successful returners do. So I am excited to see that. And RJ, it's funny what Mike just said a second ago, because the best returner is a blocked punt, and I actually got that wrong in the broadcast. I said the best returner is a no yards penalty. I'm only second right. The best returner is a blocked punt. The second best returner is a no yards penalty. The third best returner is your best return man you got on the roster. But it's unbelievable what Dennis McKnight's punt block team has done, and that's not, it goes in the books, RJ, like you and I discussed off air during the game. It goes in the books as a turnover on downs, right? Well, not all turnovers are created equal, and to paint that out, you imagine a long second down, and the quarterback throws a bomb and it gets intercepted. It's almost nearly the exact same as if they punted the ball away, or it can be in that situation. And so, yes, it's a turnover, but it's not as costly. A blocked punt is the inverse of that, where the ball gets behind the line of scrimmage. It's often will lead directly to a score, or the following plays to a score. So it's one of the most game-changing things that can happen in a football game is a blocked punt, and that's played a role in 2 weeks in a row, which is low probability and a great thing for that Ticats special teams unit.
So a couple of things there, Luke. You told me, not on the broadcast, off air, about the no yards being the best.
Why do I save my best stuff for commercial breaks?
That's because we go to commercial garbage, right at those important times. Well, we have to take those commercials, though.
If I say something like that, you got to set me up in the broadcast so that I can say it again at some point.
I'm just so amazed by it.
No, wow. It's crazy though, because to continue on the Smoke Harris discussion here. There was a return in the game. See, I was never going to be a great punt returner. Like I wasn't not fast enough, not all that. But one thing that I knew, I was going to draw more no yards penalties than anybody else out there, because sometimes you can give up the return. You don't even have to be thinking, how do I return it? All you got to do is capture the no yards. It's tricking. It's like you can trick them in a no yards. Chad Owens was a guy who understood this.
Oh man, Luke, I got to step
Mike,
in here. That drove me nuts. There was some people that could sit there and look up at the ball, and if anybody's watching on YouTube right now, they can see. But they would look at the ball and stand like 5 yards back from where the ball would actually drop. and they
Mike,
would wait
how that's
last
not
second and then shoot up and go catch it. And every single time you'd be slowing down. You're like, okay, I got him. All of a sudden he starts running toward you. You can't run backwards fast enough to get out of that no yards. And sure enough, 15-yard penalty. You're like, you got to be kidding me. I might as well just punched him in the head and got a 15-yard penalty.
Exactly. And even if you do get out of the halo, when he catches the punt, you're running backwards. Like, you're not in body position to cover a kick. You're talking to three guys, RJ, and I did say three. It's not just these two defensive guys who covered a punt against Chad Owens. I covered. There was two punts I covered in my career against Chad Owens in my first 2 years when he was still in Toronto. Don't think I made a tackle or anything like that, but Chad Owens was special about that because he knew that it wasn't just how fast you could run. It wasn't just how you could maybe score a touchdown all the time, because that's what some returners are like. That's the only value I can bring. There's value way beyond that you can offer to the team that has nothing to do with your physical ability. It's just, other than your ability to gauge the punt right, because it's not. That's not a gimme. It's not that easy to do, but you gotta look like it's coming to you and then run forward where it actually is going to land. And sorry to bring this back into 2024 and reality here, is there was a punt specifically in this game where Smoke Harris has got to start learning. You got to watch film. He could have sprinted up, and you could dive forward and touch the ball, and it hits off your hand, and it looks like a fumble, and everyone's going to go crazy, and you just gave your team 15 yards for free. It's like a loophole, and a guy like Smoke has to embody that. You got to say, forget it. I'm not wasting an opportunity like that ever again. The best returner in the league is the no yards penalty, and my job is to get it as many times as I can. So yeah. That's the one that I can think of in this game, but there are others too. That's the one where you just got to sprint forward, but whatever. Go ahead, Buck.
That's just a situational football, right? Where as he gets more and more reps, he'll get a little bit more comfortable. Of course, like you said, he's a pro. He's out there. He's got to know these things. But I think just as he gets a little bit more comfortable out there, and I say be patient with this guy. I think he's shown some flashes. Let's see what he can do. Let's of course he's had a few games under his belt, but let's just be a little patient with this guy and let's see what he can do in the next few weeks.
Yeah, he didn't have many opportunities. One other thing, because I'm a stats guy, the two block punts actually statistically went in differently. The first one was a turnover on downs, the one against Toronto, because Haggerty, the punter, recovered it, so that was a turnover on downs. The other one was a fumble recovery because the Tiger Cats picked it up, so they were recorded as basically different turnovers, but still turnovers for the Tiger Cats. So it's for all those stats people out there, love you.
RJ takes care of you.
How they haven't figured that out yet, right? Like, we don't know what to do with this. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense when you break it down, but Luke and I had a conversation again off the air during probably a little before the game, that I was searching for that turnover on downs and realized, it's the block punt against Toronto. The defense came up with another interception, which was great, and starting to get some takeaways, but pretty fascinating through 7 games now, Matt, that Tiger Cats don't have any defensive takeaways in the second half. Is that a concern, or is that just how the games have gone and no big deal? They've strung together back-to-back wins, so who cares?
I think the concern is the amount of turnovers that they've been able to force. It hasn't been a lot. Whether you get them in the first half, second half, you got to get them. And they haven't been getting them, with the exception of the last game. Jamal Pierce creating that interception just before halftime. But we need more turnovers. They need more turnovers to get them again, put the ball back in the offense's hand so they can make some plays. I think it's just being aggressive. Seeing that quarterback. If that quarterback is in that backfield, getting this, forcing that strip sack, whatever we can do to get that turnover. I think those are going to be critical in this next stretch.
Mike Daly, I got to be honest, your name came up in the broadcast when Luke and I were chatting. It was a play by Jonathan Mox. He made a great play to knock the ball out of the air. He didn't realize it was probably catchable. He started celebrating. The ball landed near him. But Luke brought it up about knockdowns are missed interceptions. Jamal Peters is the only Tiger Cat with any interceptions. He has both of them this year. Are you hoping to see some other guys get into that stats category?
The easy answer, yeah, I am for sure, because it like Buck just said, it's just not enough right now, and right now it is, knockdowns, they are missed interceptions, right? I say the person that's going to lead the CFL in interceptions is just the one that catches the ones that are thrown to him. Don't have to do anything crazy, just be in position. You will get balls thrown your way. You just have to catch them. The Ticats, if you want to talk about drops, we might have to start looking over toward the DB side, because there are a ton. And there are those opportunities that are there. So I remember, I think it was back in 2018. It was the same issue. And I remember as, Delvin Bro, Jamal Roll, when we were playing, we had a ton of drops. And everyone was asking, well, where's the turnovers? Where's the turnovers? And it's like, well, listen, when we watch on film, we have pulled up on our nice little Excel sheet, missed opportunity, and we would have been leading the league if we had just caught those ones. So I feel it's one of these things where it's going to come, at least fingers crossed, right? It's going to come, but there are these opportunities. It's no more that they're not taking chances at getting them, right? You saw early in the season, Stavros dropped 2, Talbert's dropped a couple now, right? Moxie had that one chance in Edmonton. So there's opportunities. Just have to finish those opportunities, because like Buck said, those are massive game-changing moments. And what that also does is when you're up by 30, it doesn't let a team come back with 20 points by a trade forward, right? You get those turnovers, you put your foot on the gas, and you end these games and not make it a close one down the road. So there's opportunities there, but don't forget, interceptions are only one side of it. Let's start punching at the ball to get that thing out, because you're just not seeing enough of those emphasis points. And I don't know, it's one of these things that just have to be talked about in practice, I believe, in order for the Ticats to take advantage of it.
It almost seems to me like the mental part of it for the athlete is like, you got to almost not be content with knockdowns. Like you almost have to be fighting so hard for the interception that a knockdown is a missed opportunity. Like it goes in the category, this is what we've talked about in the past. Like it goes in your stat line. Like it's better to have more knockdowns. They keep track of who has the most knockdowns, etc. But like that's like I feel like you got to save knockdowns, leave knockdowns for the D line. Like I want interceptions. And Moxie got a knockdown, and the ball was 10 feet above his head and bounced on the turf on his heels, and he was standing by alone. The following play, Richard Leonard, who I think does have a knack for interceptions, missed one. I don't want to make it sound like it was an easy catch. It's one of those that surprised him. You think a receiver's going to be able to make a play on, or you're going to have to knock his hands down, and then the ball ends up going right through your own hands. So it's a little bit of a weird situation, but if you're really hungry for it, and you've got to be, that's my point, you got to be discontent with knockdowns. Like it is about turning the ball over, and I hope to see just that little bit, that next edge in the secondary of just a tenacity to give Bo more opportunities per game.
Well, and Luke, sorry, AJ, I want to bring this up because I want to ask Buck, because this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I've mentioned it a couple times, but in terms of the back end, it is newer people. Now, there's some experience back there. You mentioned Richard Leonard, Jamal Peters, but it's one of these situations where the experience or the comfort level of being able to say, you know what I'm doing, I know what I should do, and now I can go get the ball, instead of, I don't want to mess up. I'm so scared to mess up. And now you're not even trying to get the ball. And like, Buck, I want to get your take, because I've been on this for a little bit, and I'm wondering if that's the issue here.
Hey, that's a really good point, Daly, because as a vet, you start to take some of those chances, and they're not risks, but it's like from film study, from knowing the system, where it's like, okay, these are going to be some of my spots where I can, if this play comes, if I see this set, or if I see this formation, or certain players lined up over top of me, I can go and I can take this chance. That's something that Jamal Peters did actually. As he made that pick, that was like, to me, I thought that was pure film study. He kind of studied Geno Lewis's route and was able to jump plays. You need more plays like that, I think. And again, as a rookie, you're kind of just like, I just need to make sure. I love that you mentioned that, Daly, because some rookies, when you're young, it's like, I just need to make sure I'm doing my job, because I don't want to lose my spot next week. And so it's like, hey, You got to get to a point where you're feeling comfortable with the system. You're feeling comfortable out there, and you start taking a little bit more chances. And Dale, I've seen you make some plays like that where you're jumping routes, and that's just through pure film study and again being comfortable in the system. So I think that's a great point.
Back-to-back games, guys, where the Tiger Cats have chased the starting quarterback, which is a good thing, led to victories. Although I guess the bad part of it is the quarterback who came in both games seemed to have more success than that starting quarterback. And you can't say that it's, well, a pocket passer and then a run guy came in both times. That's what happened against Edmonton, but it was the opposite against the Argos, where Dukes is more of a runner and Arbuckle's more of a pocket guy. Mike, what does that say about the defense? A, that they're able to chase the starting quarterback, but B, that they seem to struggle a little bit when the next guy comes in. Why is that?
Yeah, it's great when you can get a starting quarterback or whoever they decided was a starter that week out of there, because what that means is you're playing well. It means you're confusing the quarterback. They're not making good throws, not making good reads. And that could be a lot of pre-snap communication, and that's now confusing quarterbacks in that offense. Or it could be just covering the receivers well and not giving that quarterback, a right read for them to make a clean throw. It's RJ, this is a tough thing when you've gotten the starter out, the backup comes in, because now it switches from a physical type of preparation to a mental preparation mid-game. Because you're like, okay, where the starter is out, this backup's in. We talked about the backup not being very good or whatever the pre-week lead-up was of your film study. And now you have to get over this hump of like, okay, we need to lock back in because he is still a professional. And this guy can still come in and make some plays, but that's a very, very hard thing to do. It's the exact same situation was when the Ticats are up 30, right? The players take their foot off the gas a little bit because it's like, hey, this game's easy. We got this in the bag. Everything's working really, really well. When a backup comes in or you're up a bunch of points, you slow down a little bit, right? And that's the hardest thing to do as an athlete. I remember even myself, there'd be games, the one that I can think of is like at the end of the season when they don't mean anything for standings, you take your foot off the gas. When you're up by a bunch, you take the foot off the gas. And when that happens, that's when you either get hurt or you get embarrassed. And right now that is one of the hardest things to do. And in that game, when Trey Ford came in, it's, okay, we're up by 30, a new backup quarterback comes in. This is easy. Nice to get out of Edmonton, leave as quick as we can with the win. Next thing you know, it's like, holy cow, we better lock back in because they're scoring touchdowns on us.
You agree with that, Buck?
I think one of the things you don't want to become is a team that teams can take advantage of late in the game. And you don't want to be putting that stuff out on film where it's like, okay, we know that if the game gets close in the fourth quarter, this is going to be a team that, we might be able to steal one. And so I think one of the things that the Cats need to do is lock in is just making sure that they're closing these games out. I think it's critical. But yeah, when a new quarterback comes in, it can bring some challenges, especially if the preparation's not there. It's definitely a mental game at that point where now Trey Ford I think he's a bit of an exception because there's not too many D linemen that's out there that can control this guy. In my opinion, he's been given the league fits. So he's a bit of an exception, but again, it's going to come down to preparation, for a lot of these guys and making sure that, regardless of the player, regardless of the system, fourth quarter comes, we got to lock in because we can't be giving away, long or, big leads, or we got to close out closer games. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, Tiger Cats had that game in hand. Really, all that is Trey Ford's agent should be giving the Ticats a bit of a cut because you know who's going to be starting for the Alouettes next week.
Oh, shit.
All right, Luke, let's talk some offense. We got to talk Bo. Career high 5 touchdown passes. Jeff Giordad, who does a great job. Stanley Cup final producer, by the way, and he's with us because he loves the Tiger Cats and loves Ticats Audio Network, and he's a great part of the team. But he told us that stat. Might have been in a commercial break and said, hey, Bo's got 4 touchdowns. He throws one more. It's the most he's had in his career. I was surprised by that. Were you, Luke?
Yeah, I was surprised. You would have thought that there'd be a 5-game there in his past, but whatever. Bo's experience sort of speaks for itself. So good for him and good for Hamilton fans that ended up happening in a Ticat jersey. And it's funny, after we had Bo on the Ticats Audio Network post game show, and he was like, he's like, the people are saying I'm like an old car. Like I start up slow, or what was his analogy? Like I start up slow, but then once I'm going, like it's really, really nice, really good looking. And I guess maybe there was some truth in that to his game and over the weekend at Edmonton. But that, like I said, I've rarely seen a third quarter like that, and it started in the second quarter too. But the first part of Bo's analogy there is also true. It was a slow start, and not just unrelated factors. I mean, Bo was not playing well to start the game, and he was missing. It seemed like he wasn't seeing the field very, very well. Some missed throws, one that sailed on him, and so good for him. I mean, he calmed it down. He kind of refocused that game. And good for his receiving core, too, because that was fun to watch there as they started heating up.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, yeah, Luke, and I wanted to get your take on this a little bit, too, is what I really like that Milanovic is doing to help Bo out is it almost seemed like every time there was a turnover or a defensive penalty, that's when we saw those big play action, long developing shots down the field. You saw him hit Keandre on it, right? I know the Luther touchdown, that was him just breaking a few tackles, but I'm starting to see this as a trend from Milanovic now, where it's if there is a defensive penalty or these long stretches of time between plays, he's coming back and giving Bo an opportunity to go for the touchdown immediately. And we saw that with the Keandre one, and it's pretty cool to see him lean on Bo that much with some of those type of situations.
Yeah, I think you're right. It makes me also think about sort of similar to what you're saying is, remember, I think it was the home game against Sask, which the Ticats ended up losing, the James Butler run, the illegal participation from the Saskatchewan D lineman who lost his helmet, then recovered the fumble. So dead to rights. So this should be a Sask ball at the line of scrimmage for Hamilton, which was something like the 40 or 45 yard line on Hamilton's side. That whole thing gets figured out. The illegal participation ends up in a Ticat first down. So no turnover. In fact, even better, first down. And then followed up with it was the flea flicker kind of thing to Bo to Keandre Smith down the far sideline. So I think it's opportunistic play calling, and it's probably I would think it comes from being a quarterback too. Like it's sort of like just fitting, seems like the right time to strike or to call one of your big shots after something's sort of gone your way, like you're saying, like the overturned illegal participation or defensive takeaway, and you get the ball. So I like it. It's a fun game to watch. I would have liked that as a receiver too. Like you get this burst of energy, and then that play that you kind of had highlighted on your call sheet all week gets called, and now it's go time. So I think you might be right. It might be on a Milanovic trend, but I kind of agree with that play calling strategy.
The statistics for Bo. Go ahead, Buck.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think a big part of Bo's game for, even from his years in Calgary is he was a quarterback that was going to take shots. He wasn't the quote unquote game manager. He's a guy that he's going to take some shots downfield. And I love that he's getting that chance to do it here with Hamilton too. And I think too with Bo is there's been some rumblings about him in the back end. A lot of people have been saying, Bo doesn't have it, and he's getting old, things like that. And so I love seeing him, I guess as an older guy myself, I love seeing the older guys, do a little bit of work and make some plays out there. And he looked great. He looked great again, just giving these guys a lot more to get excited for.
Buck, he's not only making plays. His numbers are off the charts. We talked about setting a career high with 5 touchdown passes. His yardage, his passing yards, 2257. That's the most he's had in 3 years. He needs a little over 300 yards in the next game to make it the most he's had in 4 seasons. Wow. He's thrown 17 touchdowns. That's the most in the CFL. He's on pace for 43. That would easily be the most he's thrown in a season. pretty funny, too. He's got 75 rushing yards, and that's the most he's had in 5 seasons. His season high is a little over 100 rushing yards. So we've seen Bo run the ball when he gets an opportunity as well. Mike, the statistics say this is on pace for Bo Levi Mitchell's best season. Are we seeing the best Bo Levi Mitchell ever in the CFL this year?
Yeah, it's tough to say ever yet. And I'm going to put that out there because I know Bo Levi Mitchell will say the same thing, right? When you have a quarterback that's been able to win the big one a bunch of times, been able to be there, and is always in the Grey Cup from what it seemed like in his time in Calgary, it won't really matter for him until he wins it again. And it's one of these situations where you have a season like this, and you're having a great season, all-star, no question, right? Best you've ever had. But if you don't win at the end of it, it's all kind of, you sit back and you go, man, it would have been awesome to win it because now it means something. And it's really cool to watch, and I'm happy for Bo, especially because of how it went last year. And everyone's like, is this a mistake bringing Bo over to the Ticats? Did they put too much toward him, right? Was there too much emphasis on Bo leading this team? And absolutely not. And you need a quarterback like this as the Ticats to go down there and win the big one down the road. But there also needs to be some resurgence of people around him as well. We talked about it before, and it was a great win in Edmonton, but you don't want to waste by Mitchell, right? You don't want to waste the season that he's having. And that's where everybody around has to step up and say, hey, listen, we have somebody like Bo Levi Mitchell who's going to go out there and win games on his own, right? But we can't let that be a thing. It doesn't have to be up to Bo. It can be up to the running game, right? It can be up to the special teams. It can be up to the defense. But it's awesome as a fan, as a Ticats fan, to see it all panning out, working out the way we had hoped when Bo came over to the Ticats.
Very logical answer, and you're right. He wants the Grey Cup. I was hoping for, this is his best season ever.
Sorry,
that's all right.
Sorry, RJ. But
we'll talk after the Grey Cup game.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly.
We'll do one more Ticats this week, end of the Grey Cup, and then we can officially say best season for Bo Levi Mitchell.
No, you're right. Best season ever. He should sit on the bench the rest because he's just been doing so well. You don't want to waste the rest of what could have happened, right? Get him on the bench. Get him out of here.
But this is what's great about sports. Stories like Bo Levi Mitchell. When he came to Hamilton, there was a ton of pressure, and last year, all the injuries, he just couldn't get into a groove, and he changed his diet, changed his training, was motivated for this season, and comes out. And that's one of the things I love about sports, Luke, and it probably tells us a lot about Bo Levi Mitchell's competitiveness, his professionalism, and just the kind of person he is that he's put together this kind of season.
It certainly does, and it's not hard to see that, and CFL fans have long known of Bo Levi Mitchell's thoughts about himself. Bo loves some good Bo, which we all do, and he's just great to watch out there. Like I love, you said he's nearing his career high for rushing yards, right? And you saw him after he ran for a first down in this game, and he gave the little like point towards the first down point, drop the ball like you're dropping the mic kind of thing. And it wouldn't be Bo without that, and so you hope that he's really feeding off of his own success here, and you're letting that success and confidence build. And the hard part about being a losing team, before these 2 wins, being losing games, is one of those things has to come first, success or confidence, and you gotta either kind of luck into some success so confidence can build, or you got to kind of fake it till you make it and have the confidence to let the success come. And Bo, I hope that we can continue to see it grow. And you got to let Bo just be Bo, because we're starting to see it now. And 5 touchdowns and a little bit on the ground and a pretty good and some help from the run game. And that's won Grey Cups before, that Bo Levi Mitchell recipe. So hopefully that happens in a Ticat uniform.
Matt, I want to ask you, going through this offense, so just in this last game, Tim White has 2 touchdowns. Shamar Bridges, 3 of his 4 receptions were on second down. Luther Hakunavanu has a touchdown in 3 straight games now. Keandre Smith has 5 touchdowns on the season. That's among the league leaders. James Butler's been involved in the passing game. We seem to see at least one big catch from James Tuck out of the backfield in every game. Seems like a lot of depth on this offense. If you're a defense looking at the Tiger Cats, who do you key on?
You're looking at that scouting report and you're seeing all those names you just named and you're like, man, we are in for a long game. This is no sleeper game. This is no slouch game. We gotta, as DBs, linebackers, we gotta buckle up because like you just mentioned, those names, like, if you try to take Tim White out of the game, okay, Dunbar is going to stretch the field. Okay, you want to take Dunbar out of the field? You've already seen, and Keandre Smith has already shown that he can stretch the field. He can get behind the secondary. And now you look at Kunavano, another dude. He's getting on the board. So you have to respect these receivers, and it's not a slouch receiver. These guys are explosive. They're going to make plays. They're game makers or game changers. And as a DB, it's like, all right, we better make sure our communication's on point come time to play this unit.
And thank you, Matt, for mentioning Stephen Dunbar. He's been one of my favorite Tiger Cats and top 10 in receiving. So
right.
You're right. That's another great weapon the Tiger Cats have on offense. Mike, is this a talented offensive group top to bottom, or is Bo making everybody better?
Yeah, well, and that's what a good quarterback will do is they'll find the open holes and zones when a team's playing a bunch of zone and get it out to the person that's sitting there in those open zones. And that could be any receiver. If he doesn't see anything downfield, well, that's when James Butler's getting involved on those checkdowns or a receiver that's coming in and sitting right in front of Bo Levi Mitchell. He's getting them involved. But it's also a little bit, too, and whether it's the chicken and egg conversation here, but Scott Milanovich has a little bit to do with it as well. Because of getting people into different situations, using those different personnel groupings, I do think it is how well Bo is playing is going to elevate all of his receivers and especially his O-line because they've been doing great as well, protecting him. But his play is going to elevate everybody around him. And you're starting to see this a lot with these receivers that are like Luther. I remember at the beginning of the season, we weren't talking about much about it. He was hurt, kind of stepped in, didn't really produce too much. Next thing you know, touchdown. Right? Keandre, he's been doing really well, breakout season so far. He does have weapons, but I am more curious to see Luke's take on this too, because Luke's been in situations where it's been, one or two really good receivers and they're trying to find the depth in behind, or there's been a ton of depth. Is it up to the quarterback or is it really up to these receivers, Luke?
Yeah, Bo certainly makes guys better. One of the this is just one example of how that can happen from a quarterback. You could start with the intangibles, like the in the huddle stuff and sort of the communication, but even just like the way he does this physically on the field is I think that Bo has always been one of the best in the league at being purposeful with the trajectory of the football. So. I find that he's not one of those guys who's just going to rifle in a short pass when you're sitting right over the ball or when you have a drag route and that ball comes too fast. It can be really hard to see. It looks like a short pass, seems like it should be easy, and it's not. But a swing route is a classic pass that looks like it should be so easy, and it's not. I think Bo has a great job of finding it's like the space and the time that's required by your throw. How much do you need to get over? Are you throwing over top of an under coverage player? And so that ball has to be high enough but quick enough still to get there on time. Bo's good at that. And so some of that can make the receiver right. You can be imperfect on a route or a placement and the ball can throw you correct. It can correct the pattern. Bo does some things like actual physical things like that. And then they grow together too. You just get better with quarterback receivers as even just a season goes on. So I know Bo was struggled with some of these younger guys when they got started. I mean, and it's a frustration for a veteran quarterback when guys don't have a great understanding of the timing and the space of a CFL field. And so his experience is I think probably clearly been helping. It's been a part of the ongoing success. Tim White had a slump to start this year, and you don't come out of that with a quarterback who doesn't have your back and who doesn't trust you anymore. And now Tim White scored 2 touchdowns in Edmonton. So yeah, Bo's leadership, there's things that we don't even know about, or there's things that his experience and leadership are fixing out there, and it has to continue.
I'm excited for Friday's game. It's a 2-game winning streak for the Tiger Cats. They're playing really well, and they're going up against the league's best in Montreal. Alouettes are 6-1, leading the East Division, top team in the league. So this is where we find out if the Ticats are pretenders or contenders. If they can do really well in this home and home against Montreal, they're right back in the playoff mix in the East Division. Cody Fajardo won't play. We know that. Davis Alexander's probably going to be Montreal's starter. We'll know closer to Friday. Again, 7:30 kickoff, Tim Hortons Field. You want to be there. Tiger Cats are playing great. And Montreal, the defending Grey Cup champs. It would be a big win for the Tiger Cats. Personally, I think it doesn't matter Montreal's offense. They just don't lose them games. But their defense wins them games. In my opinion, their defense is why they won the Grey Cup, why they're the number 1 team in the CFL right now. Buck, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a pretty elite group in that defensive unit, and they brought a lot of those guys back from, like you mentioned, the Grey Cup champs, the defending Grey Cup champs, and they brought a lot of those guys back, and they've been firing on all cylinders. They have given up the least amount of points in the league. They've given up the least amount of yards to their opponents, and again, they're causing fits. So this again, with Hamilton too, they've put up a lot of points themselves, but again, you're going up against a pretty strong unit, and this is going to be a really strong test for Hamilton. Can they like I've been pretty big on this. Can they play 4 quarters against a solid unit? If they can win this game at home, it's definitely a statement game, and it's going to put attention again to the league, but also a big confidence booster for Hamilton. So I'm excited to see what they do this week.
What's the key against this Montreal defense, Mike?
Yeah, well, they're unbelievable against the pass, so it's going to be one of this immovable object versus unstoppable force type situation that we're coming into, which I'm looking forward to because it's a great opportunity for somebody like Bo Levi Mitchell. Now, they're best against the pass in the league, but they're worst against the rush. So is this now one of a situation where James Butler has his coming out party? I know we saw it in Calgary early on where, like, hey, this offense is going to be focused around James Butler, but now it's been a Bo Levi Mitchell show. Is this the game where it's, hey, we need to get James Butler involved because there's some holes in this Montreal's run defense? And I am curious to hear Luke's take on this, and I know I keep throwing it over to Luke, but he's been in these situations and been in these rooms where Luke, you look at a Montreal team and you say, okay, pass defense, they're great, right? Tyrese Beverett, they're Will. He was with the Ticats earlier. Ultra athletic, might as well be as fast as a DB out there. Their pass coverage is going to be great. Run defense, not great. Are we going to lean on the run, or are we going to still put in Bo Levi Mitchell's hands? What does that look like in terms of an offensive perspective on a game?
Yeah, I guess the real answer is that you wish you had a good balance every game, and then as the game wears on, something just isn't working. It's just like something's you got to do without some things. I'd start with when you're playing a great defense. The first thing is you can't turn the ball over. You can't let them make the game changing play. They're gonna get some series. You're not gonna just have. They're gonna get some 2 and outs. That's just the way that a good defense is gonna do it. But you got to avoid the turnovers. Firstly, I would love to see James Butler have some success. If they're going to run the ball on first down, you got to be getting that 5 yards on first down. Give Scott Milanovich a 2nd and 5. When time after time you have a 2nd and 9 and a 2nd and 8, that defense is going to be winning the majority of those second down battles. And so you got to avoid those tough second down situations. I said James Butler. Actually, I think I might have said James White accidentally, but James Butler. If that's gonna work, great. If it's not, you gotta get that first down efficiency through the air. You got to get those option routes, those Oscar routes, 5-yard speed outs. You got to take what the defense gives you. And even a great defense, 12 guys isn't enough to cover an entire field. That's why the game is played with 12 and not 20, because there is opportunities out there, even against a great defense. But Bo's got to be quick with his eyes, sharp with his eyes, and that offensive line is where it's going to start. So we'll see. Partway through that second quarter, RJ, if it's just been 2nd and 9 after 2nd and 9, and that's what they've been dealing with, all incomplete pass on first down, 2nd and 10. It's just going to be a long night. That even not the best defense in the league is going to win most of their 2nd and 10s battles. So we'll see if they can move the ball quick.
Well, and Luke, you brought it up, right? It's going to be, the defense is going to win their opportunities, but in this Montreal game, what an opportunity for the Ticats defense, because we had a coach when Coach O was our defensive coordinator, Buck was in the same room. He would always say, and I love this saying that he had, outplay their defense. So as the defensive players, we had to outplay Montreal's defense in the game. So if Montreal can hold the Ticats to 14 points, well, then we better hold Montreal's offense to 13 points. And this is an opportunity for the Ticats defense with no Cody Fajardo, right, a backup quarterback in, to be able to put their foot down and say, you know what? Ticats defense, we're not letting them score, right? They might have a good defense over there with Montreal, but we're going to let Bo Levi Mitchell and James Butler get in the end zone a couple times, as many times as they can, but we're not going to let that happen, because realistically, this Montreal offense is not great on paper without Cody Fajardo. So there is an opportunity here for the Ticats defense to limit the points that they're going to be able to give up.
You're so right, Mike. I love the way that Coach O said that. Interestingly, Ken Austin, the other coach that we all shared, he used to say as from when he was a player, that he felt like he was playing the opposing team's quarterback, like it was quarterback versus quarterback. And I remember a story he told about Doug Flutie and him had a legendary showdown. Interestingly or coincidentally, Bo, I think, is about to, or maybe just did pass Ken Austin, RJ, Statman.
He's close.
He's about to, yes.
He keeps on this pace, he will.
Yes, God willing, Bo will this season pass Ken Austin in passing yards in a career. But Kent used to think about it the same way, and so you're right. I mean, it's a different way. It's a different sort of psychology of the game. But I think it's an interesting way to approach a game like this for the Ticat defense.
Well, great show, lads. Matt Bucknor, Luke Tasker, Mike Daly. Terrific discussion. Really enjoyed it. I'm RJ Broadhead. Thanks for listening to Ticats This Week. Hope you can join us for the game. Mike is back for pre, halftime, and post with Bubba O'Neill. Luke and I have the call. The pregame show's at 6:30. Kickoff is at 7:30. It is at Tim Hortons Field. It's a home game. Get there if you can. Tiger Cats trying to make it 3 wins in a row against the defending Grey Cup champions, the Montreal Alouettes. If you want to listen, log on to ticats.ca/listen.
This has been the Ticats This Week, built by Turkstra. Whatever your next home project is, build it better with Turkstra. Visit TurkstraLumber.com today. Like and follow the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast content, and get a deeper understanding of your Hamilton Tiger Cats.